Welcome to this week's webcast. This is Darren Cannell. I'm the president of Next Lev Solutions, Inc. And I am here. You'll notice across the bottom that there's very few visitors, and I'm not too sure who might be showing up. But that's okay, because there's a few things that I wanted to go through today to explain the process of creating a virtual office, creating an online course, and then also talking a little bit about how those two are related and how that is the reason why project management is so important in this day and age. So, to start off the webcast, my name is Darren Cannell, and we are going to have a half-hour session here in which I am going to play Sage on the stage. For those of you that don't understand what that term means, is in education today, there's two different methods of approaching education. One is Sage on the stage, where someone like myself who has expertise in a certain area will stand at the front and will lecture and will give you all sorts of points and facts that may become valuable to you in the future. But the way that education is going is more of an individualized approach, which allows the student to be the learner, and rather than the student who just sits and listens, starts to get actively involved in their education and proceeds to learn and solve the problems that they have. And because of the information world that we're now existing in, it is important that we start to realize the fact that that is what education is all about today, because you have all the facts and all the figures you need on your cell phone. And so any question that you might have, all you have to do is do a little bit of a search on your cell phone, and you should be able to find the answers to most of the questions that you have. The old model of education was that you worked by yourself and you tried to create knowledge and discern about all the different facts and figures that you need in order to be a well-rounded person. In this day and age, with all the information that is bombarding you continuously, you will find that it is much easier to allow others to assist you to achieve the goals that you would like to achieve. And that's what I think education is moving towards. Now, you may ask me the question of why I have the right to stand here as the sage on this stage. Here's the reason why. I am a retired educator. I taught for 31 years in the education system, and during that time I taught everything from grade 3 all the way up to grade 12 in the K-12 environment, and I've also consulted and taught at the university level when it came to how to create online environments in the universities. Most of my time has been spent in the last 13 years developing an online high school in Saskatchewan, and while doing that I proceeded to get some formal education in online learning so that I could answer some of the questions that I have about that task and that problem of creating an online environment. So I have my master's in distance learning from Athabasca University, and I'm currently just finishing up my PhD at North Central University down in the States on distance learning as well, or online learning. So that, some people would say, gives me the right to stand in front of people and give them the lowdown on how to create online courses. The question you may ask is, this is a project management webcast. So you may ask the question as to why I would be creating and talking about online learning when this webcast is all about project management. Project management allows you to achieve a goal that a lot of offices are working towards in this day and age. The office that most people are trying to achieve is what we call a virtual office. The virtual office has a lot of characteristics that are very similar to what you will find in an online school and what you will find in online courses for the learner. The virtual office allows you the flexibility to be away from the face-to-face environment where you are sitting across from your other employees in the office, and also the ability to answer questions immediately simply because you're all in a central location and your boss is there telling you this is what you need to do and that's what you need to do. The type of person that will be successful in a virtual office is someone who is dedicated to the overall goal of the office, someone who is self-motivated, someone who understands the fact that they have to dedicate a portion of their life to their job. And the reason why I state that is a lot of people automatically assume that the virtual office gives them the flexibility and the freedom to do whatever they want, whenever they want. And what ends up happening is you end up falling behind in your work and what you have to get done in a certain day. So you have to be very dedicated and very systematic in your approach to doing things. And to do that, you have to have an area in your house or wherever you plan on working, which you dedicate directly to your job, and during which time it's important that the people that are around you leave you alone and allow you to proceed to be successful and do what has to be done during that period of time. So if you see your work day as being 8 hours, you have to find a location in your house where when you enter that location, you're not going to be asked to come out of that environment and to continually be pulled in different directions. You have to have the ability to shut everything else down and let everyone else in that environment know that when you're in that place, that you're in a workplace. And in order to do that, you have to do one or two things. One thing that I found very successful for me is my wife is an early morning person. I am a very late evening person. And so I found that my work day tended to happen mostly after my wife goes to sleep. Now, there's a disconnect there, and there's some challenges when it comes to that, is because then you have to understand that that's going to affect your ability to be up in the morning with your wife, who's a morning person, and to do the things that you would do in a normal day. And so it's very harmful to your personal life. So that's one aspect of having a virtual office. The nicest thing about the virtual office is you do have the flexibility to decide when you want to work and how you want to work and where you would like to work. Because of the internet and because of the ability to communicate and do a lot of the things across the web in a very timely fashion, it allows you to be very flexible and work from different locations. For instance, the last 3 weeks, I have been in Hawaii, working in Hawaii, which everyone would say, oh, that's so nice. It is nice, except for the fact that there is some time during the day that you have to dedicate to work. I wasn't wandering around looking at the waterfalls and looking at the foliage and everything else that's in Hawaii. You have to actually dedicate the time in which you work on the material that you would like to achieve. In order to do that, you have to use a very solid project management approach or a systematic approach to the way you're going to get things achieved. And so you have to decide what it is that your goals are, and you have to start working on those goals step by step to work your way through that. The problem with a virtual office is that you have to have some skills when it comes to using the computer and using the communication skills that are available to you. A lot of people automatically assume that the best approach to a virtual office is to sit there and use what we would call the email system or the communication system that everybody likes to use the best. The nice thing about a virtual office is your Facebook can become very powerful. You can use your Facebook as a communication tool because it does have a chat feature in there. You can use text messaging as a very good method of communicating back and forth. You can use Skype as a good method of communicating back and forth. You can use this tool, Hangouts, which would allow you to have your virtual meetings. The important thing is that your objectives are very clear in your office. It's very clear to anyone who is not working in the office as to what they need to achieve at what time and what the deadlines are, and then you have to achieve those deadlines. What the problem is when you have a virtual office a lot of times is that you will have people who will not be in the central location, which means you have no supervision, and then there's a body of trust or a trust level that has to exist in order for you to be able to run a virtual office. In order to do that, you have to have check marks, you have to have milestones, and you have to have very clear objectives and goals in which the person has to try to achieve. There should be no gut instinct for a boss or for the employee not knowing how to proceed or what they need to do next. If they are not following the proper procedures, then you know we're going to have a problem, and you know we're going to run into issues with that. And then the gut instinct and, oh, is that person really putting as much effort as they should into it? And the people that I've worked with in the past in a successful virtual office, there had to be some trust built beforehand. So it's very difficult to be running a virtual office and have new people that you don't know or don't understand the way they work and throw them into that environment. Excuse me, I just have to shut this off for a second. Sorry, Guy. if you're having problems getting in, you'll have to just call the office. For anybody who's having problems getting into this live webcast, don't panic. Just view it from the outside. There won't be a lot of interaction on this because today I'm playing Sage on the stage. So that was one of the normal people who come in and watch the live broadcast, but that's not the goal for today so much as just wanting to share some information on where we're moving forward. So getting back to the virtual office. So the pros of the virtual office is the fact that it's flexible. There's many tools available, all sorts of different approaches to going forward with it. There's the objectives have to be super clear, and the boss has to be very organized as far as this is what our goal is, and has to have a sequential approach to the way they're moving forward. Flying by the seat of your pants does not exist and doesn't work very well with a virtual office. So let's talk about some of the cons of a virtual office. You never get away from work. So a lot of people, you'll hear a lot of people say, geez, I'd love to work in a virtual office. That means I could work from home, I have the flexibility and all that stuff. The problem with the virtual office is it never goes away. This rings and you are there. So then that's a concern. Excuse me a second. Hello, Darren Canal speaking. Hi, Guy. No, I'm just running a virtual webcast by myself, and you can view it from the outside. Not sure. Was that set up? Oh. Well, I didn't know about that, but I can invite you if you'd like to come in, or if you'd like to just watch from the outside, you can, and then we'll set it up for next week. Okay, sorry, bud. Okay, I'll do so. Okay, I will. Bye-bye. Nice example. That was Guy. He is one of our experts here in the office, and he was supposed to be our guest speaker today. And the email that came through, because of the number of emails that have been floating around, that's something that I missed. And so that's part of what happens in a virtual office quite frequently is you drop the ball because the process that we have in place here at the office isn't refined enough yet so that you don't have things falling through the cracks, because at the moment the tools that we're using is just the email system. And so that's one of the things that when you talk about virtual offices and the cons of a virtual office is the fact that if you are only using email, it becomes so overwhelming and so hard to stay on top of things that you just can't. And so that was a prime example of how that can happen. So you heard the conversation. He said he was chosen to be the speaker at this this Google Hangout, and he was ready to do it, and then wasn't invited, and it fell through the cracks, and then didn't know what was happening. So that's an issue of what happens when you're working virtually from other locations and that type of stuff. And so that's one of the cons, is that you will drop the ball, and you have to understand that that's going to happen once in a while. And there's also lag time between things and the way things happen. And so as I was in the obviously in Hawaii for the last little while, I've been playing catch up on the things that need to be done in the next couple of days. And I've been home for 3 days, and I'm still playing catch up and still trying to get through all my emails and all the things that had to be done, and dropping the ball, as you saw today, how I dropped the ball on setting up a guy to come in and actually do the webcast. So I have to apologize to Guy publicly, because that's my mistake, and I just didn't get around to checking all the emails when it came to those type of things. So that's one of the flaws and one of the cons that you have with a con system. One of the cons that you have with a virtual office, and so that's part of what we're talking about. The systematic approach is one of those things that we have a software package here in the office that we haven't used very effectively, but we will start to use and will continue to use. And as we become more of a virtual office, that is going to be the systematic approach that will allow us to stay on top of things like this so they don't fall through the cracks. And so very often the email system, people always rely on the email system as a method of communicating back and forth, and it just doesn't work very well in order to do that. So There is a lag in a virtual office. So yesterday, for instance, I went home to work, turned up the volume on my phone, and my boss, who is now going to New York for the next week, was trying to get a hold of me in the afternoon and didn't get a response immediately, and started to get very concerned about the fact that what happened? How come you're not responding? And that's part of what a virtual office is as well. You can't leave things to, you can't expect a quick response. What I always tell people is that you have to give at least a 12-hour lag time for people to hit whatever you're trying to get done. And so the virtual office forces you to be very organized and forces you to make sure that you give that systematic approach and you expect a little bit of a lag time in response. In the virtual world that we live in, people are so used to text messaging and things happening immediately, but you'll drive your office totally insane if you expect a quick response all the time. And so one of the things that when I ran a virtual office for 10 months and as I was traveling around the world, one of the things that I had to resign myself to and get used to is the fact that you're not going to get a fast response all the time. You're going to get a response sooner or later because the people that you have in place you trust and you know that they're on top of things. But the only time that you have instant response is when you call something like this, a webcast together, where everybody is in the same location and you have the ability to sit down and just talk and say, okay, listen, I need to talk to you right now about something, and then you can have a meeting because they would be in the same webcast. This webcast, as you can see, there's viewers on the outside, but I'm sitting here and doing a webcast by myself. So am I hitting the people that I need them to know that this is what's going on, or da-da-da and all that other stuff? I'm not sure. The other problem with a virtual office a lot of times is the fact that you'll have people who will make assumptions, and assumptions will kill you in a virtual office and will create a lot of friction and a lot of issues. Is that I thought that was happening, and what I get accused of a lot of times when I was running a virtual office is your email was very blunt and seemed to be very to the point, and that's one of the things that you have to learn, and it's one of the learning curve things that you have to learn, is that when you write things out, you have to be very specific as to what the goal is of that email. And a lot of times people will use emails as a random thought sharing process, and then you end up with a pile of emails back and forth in a virtual office, and a lot of them are just fluff and don't have any action attached to them, or someone assumed that there was an action attached to it, and it never ever happened. And so those are the type of things that we have to be careful of when you're running a virtual office. For instance, one of the things that happened today, a guy was supposed to be the presenter, and he didn't make any mistakes. He was told by my admin assistant that he's going to do it, and the whole dropping of the ball was from my point of view because I missed it in all the emails. And so then that would be something that would be something that would fall on my lap as something that was a mess up on my part, because of the systematic approach that we're using to a virtual office is not being very effective. And so we'll have to resolve that, and we'll have to talk about it. And you do a lot of apologizing in a virtual office. I'm sorry I didn't get back to you right away. I'm sorry that didn't happen. I'm sorry we missed it. We weren't organized in order to do that. So the virtual office takes a little while for your office to get their heads around the functioning methods of making that happen. So what does that have to do with project management? If your office is running very systematic project management approach to everything, it's very easy to stay on top of those things. But it does force everyone to do documentation. The more documentation that's done, the less issues of misunderstanding happen. They still happen, but they don't happen as often because the stuff is written down in a systematic approach and in a location where you can find it. So if you're talking about the webcast, for instance, it just doesn't fall into an email box that has every other email that was ever written in the last 2 weeks about who the guest speaker was going to be, or be something like that. What it would be in a software package, or it would be in an area, or it would be in a form of some sort that this is who the guest speaker is. And so everything has to become a formalized approach to getting things done. So one of the things we haven't done with webcasts yet is formalize the approach to who sets up the webcast, who is the techie, who makes sure that people are invited, who makes sure that this is the topic, who makes sure that the guest is invited, who makes sure that the video, when it goes up later on, is in place. All those things have to be put into place and have to be organized. So in a new office or a new approach like what we're using, that takes time in order to achieve those goals and to get everybody on side on how to approach that. So that's one of the things that you're going to run into. But again, let's come back to why the virtual office and PM fall hand in hand. Virtual offices, everybody uses that catchphrase. Very few people have actually done a virtual office. A lot of people say, oh, I work from home, and they're consultants. A consultant isn't a member of a virtual office. A consultant is an outside agency that comes in, finds out what they need to do, go away, does the work, and then comes back. A virtual office means that you don't have a central location where people get together, and you can have people all over the world working. You can have all sorts of different moving parts in there, and they all have to be organized in such a fashion that nothing falls through the cracks. Obviously, that's not working here. You can see the 4 different levels of courses. And the reason why I'm going to skip it right quick here now is I'm going to talk about online courses and the 4 levels of courses that you have, because they also talk about a virtual office, and there's a direct correlation between the two. So let's talk about online courses. If I'm writing online courses, there's 4 different levels. Level number 1 is a bad teacher's approach to education in a face-to-face environment. And so when you're writing the course, what you do is you take what you have done and the approach that you're using. You're not really a subject matter expert, so what you do is you go to the textbook, you use the textbook in order to put the ideas across and allow the online course to teach the person on what they need to do. And so let's go back and let's make a correlation between that and the virtual office and PM approach. So I write a course based on a textbook. A lot of people, when they run a virtual office, will say, well, someone needs to tell me how to go about doing this. Let's get somebody like myself who has some expertise in that area and say, how would you set this up? And then you're relying on the one person in order to make that happen. And that's the same thing that happens in a virtual course or an online course. Is if you're just relying on the textbook as the only source of information because you're not an expert in that area, or you don't have an expert around to assist you or involved in the process, then you're going to end up with issues. So to build a virtual office when you haven't had any experience in it, or you haven't done a lot of reading on it or done a lot of research on it, is almost impossible, because you'll always end up with somebody assuming and making assumptions that this is the way it's going to work in a virtual office. Oh, we can run a virtual office just using email. It's like saying we can run a PM office and have very good project management approach and not have anybody who truly understands what project management is all about and the systematic approach to that. So a level 1 course is a course that is written just based on a content. Here's the content, here's a textbook, and it goes through the cycle of here's a content, here's a test, here's a content, here's the test. The same thing happens in your virtual office. Here's what I'd like you to do. Go do it when you come back, which is your test. Did you achieve it? No, you didn't. Then let's go back and do it again and go through the process. And it takes so much longer in order to do a level 1 virtual office. Level virtual office or level online course level 2, what you're doing is you're doing exactly what you would do in your face-to-face office or your face-to-face course. So you have an online course, which is a level 2 course, and then what you're doing is it's a real good teacher who has lots of videos and has lots of interactivity in their class, and it's all a self-contained class. So when you close the door, here's what happens in our office. I'd like to recreate that virtually. A virtual office can function in that. An online course can function in that style, where you set it up, where you try to recreate exactly what you do in your face-to-face environment, in a successful face-to-face environment. So if I'm a good teacher and I teach online, I teach in face-to-face classroom very well, and I'm well received, the students enjoy it and all that stuff, then I set up my classroom that way and it will work. You'll do great. If I have an office that's functions very well and it continues to do things successfully and all that other stuff, if I can recreate that in a virtual environment, that would be very successful. That would be a level 2 in virtual office or a level 2 virtual class. The level 3 class, you start to incorporate some of the other things that you have on the internet that you don't have in the face-to-face. This is where you start to step away from recreating what has happened in the past and just doing the historical things about teaching a class. Here's the content, here's the video that supports it, here's some of the other material, here's some audio files, here's the tests, and now what you're starting to do is you're starting to bring in some of the tools that the internet does. So the internet has the ability to do a whole pile of things that, and I'm not going to list them off here, but this is one very good one right here. This is the ability to share information in a Google Hangout with a group of people that you may not even know, and to bring in experts like Guy, who would come in and he would explain his approach to things and the way things should happen. That sort of brings in the outside world into your classroom. Any classroom that goes on field trips or brings in experts from the outside tends to be a more vibrant and a more active learning environment for people. When you start incorporating the material and the tools and the information that's on the World Wide Web into that, then you're even one step higher, and that becomes your level 3 classroom. Level 3 virtual office is when you start to realize the fact that you don't have to have your expertise in your office. Your virtual office, if I give someone a task in a virtual office and say, I'd like you to achieve this, that person has to go out there on the World Wide Web and find the expert to help them. We don't have to have it in our office. We don't have to have the expertise. We don't even have to hire the expertise because all the information is on the World Wide Web. And so a level 3 virtual office you'll give tasks to people, and they will be the self-learner that will go out there and figure out what they need to do in order to do that. And so that's a level 4 virtual office. A level 5 virtual office is what everyone is striving towards and what we're trying to do here at Next Level. And that is to have a situation where the person, the employee, starts to think for themselves and figure out what needs to be done in order to achieve the common goal. And so you ask for a common goal, and then you allow the person who is a self-learner to go out there and find out the best way to do those things. The problem with that approach for most bosses is you need to release some control. And in order to release that control, you have to have trust in your employees, and you have to have trust in an online classroom. You have to have some trust in the students and the fact that they do have the ability. And if you set the bar high enough and say, listen, I'd like you to figure out how to build a castle, they will go out there and find the people on the World Wide Web as an interested student. They would go out there and find what they need to do in order to build that castle. And then the same thing happens in your virtual office. Here's our goal. Here's the way we need to go. They don't all stop dead and look at you and say, okay, what do I have to do next? Give me the next step. What's my next step? Tell me what I need to do now. Tell me. Okay, what's the next step? And you don't have to do that if you run a level 4 virtual class. So that's all fine and dandy. One of the things that I said that I was going to talk about, and I notice I'm down to 5 minutes here in this session, was we were going to talk about some of the career opportunities that we have here. NextLev Solutions Inc. is going through another major change today, and we will talk about it as some of the things that are happening. But a lot of stuff, and this was an approach that I've used in the past, is you bring in the expert when you need the expert. And so we're going to start to expand the number of people that we employ, and there's lots of career opportunities here. And the sales team, for instance, is continuing to grow, and that has happened, and is starting to bring in agents who have the ability to get out there and sell the courses and the things that we create here at NextLev Solutions. So there's lots of career opportunities here at NextLev that will be happening in the next little while, and different focuses on the way we approach things. And we're hoping that we move towards a level 4 virtual office and a level 4 online course. When we talk about that, we have automatically eliminated a few people from the office and also from the online course. The online course is the one that I'd like to speak about here online, and that talks about the ability for a learner to come in and be successful online. To be successful online, you have to have a few characteristics. One of them, and this applies to the virtual office, so as you listen to this, listen to how this may apply, or you in your mind try to think of how this would apply in your virtual office. For a learner to be successful in an online course, they have to realize that there is no sage on the stage. Here at NextLev, we have courses that are written in such a fashion that the learner is the center of the focus on the style that they would like to learn. We offer the courses in a couple of different styles, which would allow the learner to decide how they would like to proceed. You'll hear all sorts of questions that come back when you offer that kind of class from the people who are used to the traditional learning style, and that's where, tell me what's on the test. Tell me what I need to know in order to be successful. We have not written a PM course which will allow you to for sure have the answers to all the questions that people are going to ask you. The problem with PM and the problem with a lot of subjects is there's no finite method of questions. There's an infinite number of questions out there that have to do with project management. What we're hoping to do is give you the skills that will allow you to answer those questions because of the background and because of the foundation that we're building in the courses that we offer. And so one of the things that we're trying to do in our virtual office and in online courses here at NextLev is we're trying to build a foundation in people's background and in their experience so that they can handle any questions that come their way in order to be successful. Online courses, because they're still text-based, and because we're working with about a level 2 to a level 3 class and that we have created, text is still the #1 method of transfer of knowledge. So you have to be able to comprehend what you read. Online learning, if a person doesn't speak English very well, they're going to find their comprehension is lower. They're going to find online learning frustrating. If someone is not a very good reader and doesn't comprehend very well, they're going to find online course material very difficult. The same thing happens with a virtual office. If we're running a text-based communication system back and forth like an email, and you don't read very well like what I did this week, and you missed or didn't comprehend who the presenter was for this broadcast, well, then someone's going to fall through the cracks, and then you end up apologizing because you didn't understand what's going on. Typing speed. The actual interface that we have with computers is still typing. So if you don't have a typing speed, virtual offices aren't for you, and neither is online courses. You're going to give up, in a virtual office, support for flexibility. That's your trade-off. You're going to lose a little bit of support as an employee or as a learner. In both those environments, you're going to lose a little bit of support in order for you to be successful. So that is your trade-off in order to have the flexibility so that you can enter the course whenever you wish. If you didn't want to have that flexibility, then you should take a face-to-face course, or you should have someone come and do a presentation to you in order to teach you the material that way, so you have instant reply back, there's no lag time, and you have the support in order to answer the questions. One of the things that we're trying to offer for our courses is use webcasts, which will hopefully then give you the immediate support that you need in order to be successful. You have to be a self-motivated learner. You have to dedicate time. You have to find a spot in order to dedicate the time in order to get through it. If the course is 36 hours, you can bet it's going to take you about 40 hours or 45 hours in order to complete all the course material based on how quickly you read, how quickly you understand the material, how much information you have to search for on the World Wide Web in order to support the stuff that you have read and didn't understand the way it was presented. And the first time through a course or the different learning styles, you can only write a course for so many different learning styles. So you're going to have to do some research to back that up. Then you have to make sure that you don't lose the speed so it doesn't take you 70 hours to complete a 35-hour course, although there is a flexibility to do that. The same thing happens in a virtual office, is you have to be a self-motivated learner. So if you're asked to do a certain task, you have to take the time in order to go out there, do the research in order to figure out how to do it. You can't expect someone else in the office to take ownership for teaching you those skills. Sometimes you just have to go read and figure out what has to be done in order to make those things happen. You'll find that a virtual office tends to put people out there on their little islands, and they'll feel very isolated and very stressed out based on the fact that, well, no one showed me how to do that. And it takes a special, unique person to be able to live in a virtual office. The other motivating factor in online and face-to-face, a virtual office, is how badly do you want to achieve the goal? If you're not on site and you're not fully immersed in what's happening in the office or in the online course, and it's not something that you badly want to do, then you're in the wrong environment in both locations. So you have to very badly want to achieve the goals of the office or the goals of the course in order to be successful. The online course is not teacher-centered, it's learner-centered. The virtual office is not boss-centered, it's employee-centered, which means the incentive and the motivation and the drive has to come from the employees and from the learner. You don't have a cheerleader. You don't have a boss who's going to be behind you saying, move it, move it, move it. You're not going to have a teacher behind you saying, do this, you need to do this, it needs to be done by Wednesday. And so a lot of times you'll find a virtual office and an online course, we will expect you to get things done faster than you're actually capable of doing, and which means you may have to dedicate more time if there's an emergency to get things done. A lot of people in online courses will find they fall way behind to achieve the goals. If you have an employee in an office who knows they have a deadline by Friday, so they don't start it till Thursday night, and then come in Thursday and say, oh, I didn't get it done because I didn't have enough time to complete it and all that other stuff, then the question is, how did they utilize their time? Are they working fast enough? Or are they an employee that you would like to keep in your virtual office? So it takes a very mature employee and a very mature learner to be successful in both virtual environments. And so that is the whole thing that I would like to talk about. We are always looking for people who bring the skills and the things that I talked about during this presentation to Next Level Solutions. There's lots of job opportunities here. It was very nice talking to you, but once again, we have come to the end of our broadcast. Thank you, people, for listening today. Sorry to Guy one more time about not having you in the the webcast. We'll make sure we reschedule with you and we'll get you back on. I'll talk to you later. You guys have a good week. See you next Thursday.